I'd like to continue our discussion of the book of Judges, chapter 16. We've seen our good friend Samson get entrapped as his hair has been cut by Delilah, and unfortunately, the Philistines were able to overwhelm him, although previously they had not been, and they gouged out his eyes. And the concentration here is on the vow that Samson made. Samson makes this amazing vow that he will be dedicated to the Lord. He won't cut his hair. He won't take any strong drink. He has violated the strong drink rule. Now he has violated the hair rule, and his vow to the Lord, he has shown by his lack of dedication to that vow that he isn't really totally committed to the Lord, but these other interests that he has, particularly in women, seem to take precedence for Samson. So at this point, Samson is captured by the Philistines, and he's bound in prison. And so the lords of the Philistines come together. They want to offer a great feast to their god Dagon. Dagon was originally a Mesopotamian god, and the Philistines came to worship him on their own as the god of grain. So they're going to have this great, amazing feast. Samson has been in captivity for a while, and as we know, his hair is starting to grow back again. So, for some reason, the Philistines don't seem to be too cognizant of that, or are not afraid of that, or worried about it, but that hair has grown back, and so when the hair grows back, back comes the strength. So they were rejoicing at this great feast, and they were rejoicing in one of the great accomplishments that they had in getting Samson, saying this was wonderful, and now they had conquered one of their big enemies. The Philistines were feeling rather good at this point. During the feast, the wine flowed freely. The more the wine flowed, the more they're rejoicing and not being cognizant of other things that are happening. With regard to Samson, they're just having a good time. And so, as part of this celebration, they say, hey, let's call Samson out of prison. Let's make fun of him. Let's play sport with him because he can't see us. He's not strong anymore. He's under our power. It's our time to show our power over Samson. So the people start to praise their God and say, this is great, this is wonderful. Our enemy has been delivered into us. He had slain many of the people, so this was great. This was retribution, it was vengeance. They had Samson, they had their prize. So they placed Samson between the columns so they could just see him and make fun of him. And Samson asked the attendant who was holding his hand to put him next to the columns that support the temple so he could rest on them. He said, let me put my hands on these columns. I'm tired. This would be good for me to rest and take it easy. So all the people who were gathered there, about 3,000, were on the roof, and they were making fun of Samson. They were just having sport with him. It was great. But Samson now kind of recovers some of that spirituality. And he prays to the Lord. And he prays to the Lord for strength. He says, God, please make my strength return at this point, so that those enemies that are making fun of me, the ones that have been so harsh for my people, I might have some sort of retribution against them for all that they've done to our people, all they've done to me. Please, God, give me that strength back. And he is hopeful now, with strength returning, that he could avenge himself against the Philistines, because after all, they had gouged out his eyes, he can't see. So he's praying that the strength that comes back to him through the power of God will help me to overcome the Philistines and to avenge what they have done to me. So Simon grasped the two middle columns of the temple, and these are the columns that the temple rested upon. One was at his right hand, one was at his left. Sticks his hands out. Samson then says, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed hard, and the temple fell on the lords of the Philistines and all the people who were in it. And the scriptures tell us that more people died in this incident than those he had killed in his lifetime. So there at the end of his life, when he dies as well, of course, with everything falling on him from this awesome temple, all of the stone and rock, everybody's dying. Samson dies as well. But in a way, it is a success because more people died than he had killed during his lifetime. And his family comes down then to get Samson's body, and they buried him in the grave of his father Manoah between Zorah and Eshtabal, and he had been a judge for 20 years. So as we look back on this journey through the story of Samson, what do we discover? Well, two main points really stand out. Samson was under a vow dedicated to the Lord, and that vow was supposed to take priority. But the vow came as a result of almost kind of a miraculous birth. His mother was childless. They prayed, him and his father, for a child, and after several years they had a child. It was such a blessing for them. An angel had come and told them that this would happen. They were excited, and so the only requirement was that the mother not take any strong drink and that this child be dedicated to the Lord. So they did that. They let Samson know that this was special. But then the second part of the Samson story is his own human weakness. He seemed to have this attraction for women, particularly women of the Philistines, who were the enemies of the Jewish people who had subdued them. And so he gives in to that desire that he had for the women. And this leads really to many difficulties in Samson's life. And finally, with Delilah, the ultimate difficulty of his breaking of the vow and his eyes being gouged out. So it shows us really two things, the idea of dedicated to the Lord, and then the idea of human weakness. And finally, it shows us a very interesting concept, and that is the ability of God, the ability of the Lord to work in very difficult and unusual situations, and to work through our human weakness. Samson had that human weakness. We can see it clearly in the scriptures. But in spite of that, God worked through him to achieve the conquest of the Philistines, to help the people, at least for the 20 years that Samson was judge, to overcome the Philistines. So as we reflect on it for ourselves personally, we know that sometimes we are weak, sometimes we are sinful. And the idea is that God can work through those human circumstances as long as we are open ultimately to turning to God for God's direction.